The people who get on welfare lose their human independence and feeling of dignity. They become subject to the dictates and whims of their welfare supervisor, who can tell them whether they can live here or there, whether they may put in a telephone, what they may do with their lives. They're treated like children, not like responsible adults. And they're trapped in the system. Maybe a job comes up that looks better than welfare, but they're afraid to take it, because if they lose it after a few months, it may be 6 months or 9 months before they can get back onto welfare. And as a result, this becomes a self-perpetuating cycle.
YouTube, what's going on? Back at you guys again with the Elvis Journey. Hope you guys been great. Decided to come on today and give you guys a good message and present some interesting information. We're going to talk about how welfare was introduced to the Black communities and how it was kind of detrimental to Black families as far as taking the father out of the household, and how problematic that can be for the significant other and for the children. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, feels good to be back. I'm kind of testing out some new things. I got a kind of a new camera setup and new background, and wanted to try some things out and see how it presents. Hopefully you guys like it. Yeah, hopefully my sound and everything is good too. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. But how you guys been? You guys been good? Life has been good. I can't complain too much. If you complain, nobody really wants to listen anyway, right? That's usually how it goes. Yeah, things have been good. Just been working, grinding like everybody else, trying to keep that money flowing, paying all the bills. You know what I'm saying? Bills don't stop. Even when you want to stop, the bills don't stop. So yeah, I've just been on my daily grind, but we're going to get into it. We want you to do the usual. Hit that like button, share, subscribe if you haven't. All that stuff is free. It's easy to do to support us. This content creation thing does take a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of thought, a lot of effort. And we want to make sure that when we do get on here, we're presenting things that is valuable for you guys. You guys are getting some from the channel. Even though we don't post as frequently as we like, once we're all together and in the same place, my wife and I will be putting out a lot more content. But we're doing the best we can for now. So we're going to keep delivering to you guys. You guys stay on board, all right? Stay tuned. But we're going to get into this clip. I want to react to this clip. The title is called, it's a clip I found on IG, just kind of scrolling through IG, and I found it very interesting. It says, the mother and the children are better off if the husband isn't working or if the husband isn't there, right? And it's an old clip from 1978. It kind of shows Black family, kids and stuff, and it has a social worker there talking to the family and kind of explaining things. And the mother and the father speaks and kind of explains their situation, kind of what they're going through, and it kind of takes you way back in the day to see kind of how things were. I think the clip was in Brooklyn, New York or something like that, projects out there back then. So kind of takes you back a little bit, and it's kind of crazy, but let's get into it.
I think a lot of people are capable of working and are willing to work, but it's just the way it's set up. The mother and the children are better off if the husband isn't working or if the husband isn't there. And this breaks up so many poor families.
First off, right off, it says, the system or the welfare, they're only eligible for it if the husband isn't there, if the husband isn't living in the same living quarters or living in the same household, which automatically is a problem. It's a setup for failure, because then you're cutting the children down to one parent, single parent household pretty much, just to qualify for the benefits. And we all know the issues and the problems that come along when you take the father out of the household. Kids usually don't turn out as well when they have mother and father when they just have the mother or when they just have the father. You want to have two parents. So automatically it's set up, boom, off the rip, down to one parent raising the children. And I just think that's a bad setup from the jump. And people became very reliant on these benefits, especially the households and especially if you're in poverty or you're in the ghettos or in the projects, you're not bringing in that income, you're not making that much money, and you want those government benefits. you know, people tend to settle for that for too long. It's supposed to be a temporary thing to help families out, but people seem to ride it out and even milk the system at times and just keep getting those benefits, whether it's that Section 8, SNAP benefits, food, EBT, and all that stuff, cash assistance. We tend to ride those things out a little too long. I think it's okay, temporary, if you need something to help you out. We all get in our ruts. We all have our financial issues sometimes, or, you might not be bringing in the income for whatever reason, and you need a little assistance. Fine. But to milk it for as long as we do, I don't think I think we're kind of settling to be mediocre at that point. So, but yeah, let's continue.
One of the saddest things is that many of the children whose parents are on welfare will in their turn end up in the welfare trap when they grow up. In this public housing project in the Bronx, New York, 3/4 of the families are now receiving welfare payments. Well, Mr. Brown wanted to keep away from this kind of thing for a very good reason. The people who get on welfare lose their human independence and feeling of dignity. They become subject to the dictates and whims of their welfare supervisor, who can tell them whether they can live here or there, whether they may put in a telephone, what they may do with their lives. They're treated like children, not like responsible adults. And they're trapped in the system. Maybe a job comes up that looks better than welfare, but they're afraid to take it, because if they lose it after a few months, it may be 6 months or 9 months before they can get back onto welfare. And as a result, this becomes a self-perpetuating cycle.
And there you have it. He talks about how the families become dependent on the welfare, which kind of puts them in a cycle, traps them. They become reliant on the assistance. Even if they get jobs, if they kind of get back on track and get back on their feet, they kind of fall back to the assistance because they don't know if the job's going to last 6 months, 3 months, 9 months, a year, whatever. So, the unsureness, they just go back to, okay, let me get back on government assistance. And it kind of puts you in a mind state to where you're not bettering yourself. You're not, you're just kind of staying at a certain level, settling for that mediocrity. And I really think that's just a bad place to be in, like with all the resources and everything that we have in this country, all the opportunities, we should not be settling for that. Like I said, temporary, that's fine. And on top of that, it's taking a parent out of the household, cutting the family down to just one parent pretty much raising the kid, pretty much the father. That's very important for the father to be there. So if he's not in the household, you got one parent, the parent is relying on a certain amount of money, it's very limited. And you have children, and you can only get so much money, you can only provide so much. And you live in a certain area, you can't afford to move out of that area. The area is full of poverty, full of crime. It's a trap, pretty much. So you can see how years and years and years and years of this happening, generation after generation, how it could be, it can set Black people back a lot. And we can see how that has happened, and it's still happening. Not just Black people, but people in general. Everybody. So we shouldn't settle for that. What I'm saying? It's important. I'd rather grind it out as a man, as a father, as a husband, and work 2 jobs, 3 jobs if I have to. I'd rather just grind it out, and so I can be there and provide and have both of us, me and my wife in the household, whatever I got to do. But I wouldn't want to have to rely on government assistance, because you become complacent at that point. And you want to be in the household. So We're going to go over some statistics too, some numbers, go over a couple slides, and kind of get a visual and see how this does affect the Black families. This slide we have says how welfare destroyed Black families, right? And they give some numbers here. It says, it's kind of small, but it says in 1960, before the welfare state's expansion, 22% of Black children were raised with only one parent. By 1985, after the welfare state's expansion, 67% of Black children were raised with only one parent or no parents. By 2016, after nearly 60 years of welfare, 73% of Black children were born to unmarried mothers. And then it says why. Because welfare pays more to single mothers than married ones, it encourages more out of wedlock births, and the rise of fatherless children leads to men and women who do not pursue a nuclear family of their own. Wow, so it does affect the birth rate. It has all kind of effects. Wow. Yeah, because it encourages more out of wedlock births, which people are not getting married as much already. I think the average marriage age is like around 30 now. People, getting married and not waiting until they're like 30 years old, 29, 30. So, wow, that is crazy. So, fellas, it's important to be in the household, be a presence, be around your children, and have that impact. Because you and your significant other, you guys are going to be the ones shaping your kids, molding your kids. They're going to be soaking up all that wisdom and all that experience, all that knowledge that you have. They're going to soak that up, and you're going to have to guide them and give them the tools that they need to get through life with. So I want to be one of those dads where my son, I want him to be able to come talk to me about anything. I kind of want to walk him through things. I know he has to have his own experiences, but some of the things you don't have to experience, you can learn from other people's mistakes if you just listen, right? So I'm definitely going to be that father trying to walk him through things. I know, kids can be hard headed. They're going to do what they want to do at times, but I'm going to be right there like, hey, been there, done that. This is the outcome of that. Don't do it. If you do decide to do it, you got to be accountable for your own choices. So that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? So just kind of wanted to quickly walk through that with you guys, kind of give you, an idea, my take on how welfare kind of changed the Black families when it was introduced back, I think even early as the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, 60s and 70s, even earlier than that. But it really started to make that impact on Black families around that time frame. Government assistance was introduced way, way earlier, but it really played a role in the Black families. And I think it was kind of a systemic thing to kind of break the Black family up too. So let's try our best to keep our households together, man. That's the moral of the story, man. Let's keep our households together. Fathers, keep it tight, do what you got to do to make it happen. It's our duty. You know what I'm saying? Marriage is a duty. Being a parent, being a father, being a mother, it's a duty. You got to do it even when you don't want to do it, even when you're tired. It's what you signed up for. So with that being said, I'm going to leave you guys with that. Remember, it's the Elber's Journey. Like, share, subscribe, comment, likes, dislikes, what you want to hear more of, what I could do better. We're open to all the criticism. All criticism is good. So we appreciate it. You guys take care, all right? Peace.